Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our weekly webinar presented by Reveres Academy and the Cambodia Chamber of Commerce. Today, our topic will be the winning USP and how to stand up from the crowd. So, we are glad to, for the outline of the webinar, USP is actually a strong, compelling. USP is the key to any successful business. So without a clearly defined USP, it is difficult to stand out from the rest of the market, and it will invariably come down to prices. So, so our speaker today, Mr. Justin, will tell us about the USP that we are able to create for ourselves. So Justin is currently the honorary treasurer of the Institute of Public Relations of Singapore, and also has held senior position in the government, public and private sector. So in his current role as the Director of Corporate Communication at the A-Star, Justin is responsible for achieving agencies' economic and business objective via strategic communication. So he has conducted communication training for MNCs also, and also taught civil servants from trade ministry of various countries like Malaysia, Brunei, Myanmar, and Sri Lanka. So without further ado, let us welcome Justin to his speech. Thank you. Welcome, Justin.
Hi, thanks. Okay, let me just put up my screen. Okay. So as I go through this presentation, if there are any questions, or if I'm going too fast, or I say things that perhaps you don't quite understand, just please just type into the chat group, into the chat, and then I'll try to take your answers from there. Right. So, okay, so welcome everyone. So let me start with the presentation. Okay, so I start by showing this particular article on Fox magazine. It's not about Jack Ma, right? It's about the article that came out in this particular magazine in 2018. In this article, they listed the 5 top reasons that businesses fail. Right? I mean, all of you are business owners here, all of you want to be successful. But there's studies that show that there are certain common reasons why businesses fail. Right? And from this study from Fox magazine, they've identified 5. Right? Of these 5, 4 of them, in my opinion, comes back to a company not having a strong and compelling USP, right? Or unique selling proposition. So many of us have ideas, many of us have passion, many of us who go into business think we have what it takes to succeed. But oftentimes we forget and we never ask ourselves whether or not we are able to position our business or our idea uniquely so that people buy from you and not from the competitor. Okay, so of these 5 reasons, right, I said 4 of them come back to a unique selling proposition. Right? So first of all, when they say there's no market need, if there's no market need, means you have not positioned your business well. Right? If you position it well and you know the target audience you want, you definitely have a USP. Not enough capital or cash flow, it's the same thing. Right? If you are able to position your business well, or you have a good USP, people will buy your product. And when people buy your product or service, eventually you have the cash flow and you have enough capital. Okay? Not the right team. Not the right team is something that's not related, but competition, right? If you say you have competition, right? Every business has competition. But what is it that makes your business so different that people will so-called ignore your competitors and come and buy from you? That's your USP. And of course, pricing, right? A lot of times, many of us, because we cannot differentiate ourselves from our competitors, we have to compete based on price. If you come and buy from me, why? Because I give you a cheaper price. But you have something different and unique, right? People, you can say, look, yes, I know they're competitors, but I can do A, B, C, D for you, which my competitor cannot do. Therefore, you must pay me a higher price. Okay. So based on the study, this survey or this article done by Forbes magazine in 2018, of the 5 reasons they've listed, to me, 4 of them is because you as a business owner do not have a compelling USP. Right. Before I go a bit further, I'm always asked this question: branding, or people talk about branding their organization, branding their business, right? They always focus on building their brand. Even in fact, even before they start a business, many business owners spend a lot of money, right? Trying to design a nice logo, talk about the colors, talk about what's the font they should use and so on and so forth, right? To me, this is important. But branding to me is not the key to success. Right? Let me explain this to you. If you look at all these diagrams, I mean, all these logos out there, all these are very, very famous brands in the US and around the world. There's Borders, there's Gap, there's Blockbusters, Abercrombie and Fitch, Yahoo, and so on and so forth, right? All these were huge businesses, right? Worldwide businesses, international businesses. Right? All of them have very strong brands. Like you look at it straight away, you know what they are, who they do, or what they're selling, and what they do. But the common thing is that all of them have failed. Right? All of them are in facing financial difficulties now, and most of them will be closing or have closed or will be closing in the near future. So I use this as an example to share with you that if you believe that branding is the key to success, I tell you, you're fundamentally wrong. Because all these pictures, all these companies I've shown to you have built successful brands and yet they failed. Okay, so please don't have the idea that, oh, if I can build a strong brand, people know me, I will succeed, right? Branding is part of it, but ultimately, you as a business owner must meet a compelling need. You as a business owner must have a unique selling proposition to fulfill the needs of your clients. Okay, so as I said here earlier, you must first fulfill a need. If you look at the brands I showed you, right, many of them started out and became successful because they first fulfilled a market need. They first delivered something that people wanted. But of course, over the years, they did not evolve, they did not reinvent themselves, and they became obsolete, right? And which is something I'll share with you about USP. But ultimately, right, a brand is important for top of the mind recall. But if you as a brand cannot deliver, cannot fulfill your clients' needs, you will not be able to succeed. And branding to me is a vicious cycle. Branding costs money, right? You need to keep spending money. It's very, very expensive, right? So the answer to the question is this: branding is not the key to success, right? Keep branding in mind, but don't bank on it. Don't so-called put all your focus on it to build a successful business, because that is not the key. Now, why is USP important? This is the crux of it. I use a simple example about a shopping mall or shopping center, right? We all have that. So in Singapore, I live in the eastern part of Singapore, and there's a shopping center called Parkway Parade, right? Okay, I always go there. So when I enter there at that particular shopping center, if I, for example, want to so-called have a cup of coffee, I have so many options. I can go to Starbucks, I can go to Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, I can go to Ya-Kun, I can go to Toastbox, right? I mean, there might be different names in Cambodia, but generally what I'm trying to say is that if I go to a shopping mall, I want to have a cup of coffee, I have so many options, right? They're all similar. They're coffee. Variations in that type of coffee, but more or less they're about the same. Similarly, if I want to buy a pair of shoes, right, a sport shoe, a running shoes, in Singapore, at Parkway Parade, I can go to, they have a Gallant Sports, they have Isetan there, they have Royal Sporting House. Similarly, for example of coffee, there are so many places that I can buy a particular shoe from, right? So my point is this: the business that we offer now, there's very little differentiation from one retailer to another. So what does this mean? At the end of the day, you have to compete based on price, right? Where do I go and buy the shoe from, right? I buy the shoe from the retailer that offers me the cheapest price, the one that's on sale, right? The one that allows me to so-called get a better deal, because ultimately the products are all the same. What makes it worse? These retailers in this particular shopping center I'm talking about is not only competing with the competitors within the same shopping center, right? Many of them now are competing with online retailers, right? You have your you have your Amazons and so on out there. You can buy almost anything online. You have a Taobao, you have Amazon, and so on and so forth. So what happens now? People, for example, for me, unless if I need something urgently, I will probably go to the shopping mall, go to a particular retailer, try out the shoe that I want, find out what model it is, find out the particular size that fits me, right? And then I'll come back home and go online and buy it. Why? Because I can get it cheaper online. In the past, when you buy things online, there is a wait, right? Sometimes it takes you 1 month, 2 months, and so on, right? So therefore, people have no choice but to buy from the online retailer. But today, the distribution is so fast. Right? You buy something, almost within 3 or 4 days, you can have the product delivered to your doorstep. Right? In fact, sometimes if if the products are available locally, you can get it the next day. So what I'm trying to share with you with this particular example, where if you are a business owner, if you are a retailer, right, for example, if you do not have a product or service that's unique or different, right, you have no choice but to compete based on price with the people around you, as well as with businesses that are around the world. Right? So at the end of the day, right, because like I said, unless you are unique and different, everything comes back down to price. You compete based on price. Recently, I was walking by a shop, right? They're selling jewelry, diamond rings, right? They have a fantastic sign in the window, 50% plus 30% plus 20% off. Right? It all comes down to price, right? So it seems so attractive, but at the end of the day, you know, as a business owner, you have overheads to pay. You have to pay rental, you have to pay your staff costs, you have to pay inventory costs, and so on and so forth, right? If you rely on competing based on price, at the end of the day, you as a business owner will find it hard to survive. Even if you outlast your competitor, right? The damage that you sustain or the capital loss that you will sustain to keep your business going is normally irreparable, meaning that you eventually will also find it hard to succeed, right? You may want this battle, but as you're about to try to so-called capitalize on it, new competitors will come in and you eventually have to fight again. So my point to you is this, competing based on price is not an option. And as a business owner, at all costs, you must avoid using price as a differentiator. Okay, you cannot succeed using price. So I'll give another example to illustrate this. I'm not sure whether you have bubble tea in Cambodia. Sorry, excuse me. If you don't, maybe go and Google it. Bubble tea is a very popular drink in Singapore. Back in the early 2000s, bubble tea had a boom in Singapore, right? Almost everywhere there were bubble tea shops popping up. For the simple reason that the barriers to entry was very low. I was told that it costs you as little as 5,000 Singapore dollars, or which is probably about 3 to 4,000 USD, to actually set up a bubble tea shop. All you need to do is rent a place, set up the counter, pay for the supplier. And the supplier will buy the machine from the supplier, and the supplier will give you all the ingredients and teach you how to make the bubble tea. Not surprisingly, every bubble tea is the same. Right? So near my house at a point of time, right, there was a particular bubble tea shop that came up. Right? They were the only one. But because they were the only one, they had all the business, right? So they were very, very successful. Everybody went to buy from them. Within 3 months, another bubble tea shop opened 4 doors down the road. 4 doors down the particular stretch of road. Right? So very close by, also another bubble tea. So what happened? The first bubble tea shop was very successful. Subsequently, a second bubble tea shop came up. So when the second bubble tea shop came up, there was a competition, and the business was actually divided between 2 bubble tea shops. So what happened to the first shop? The first shop said, "Oh no, cannot. I cannot allow this to happen. I need to generate sales." So the first bubble tea shop offered a loyalty program. Buy 10 bubble tea, get 1 free. So what happened? Everybody who went patronize the second bubble tea shop went back to the first one. Then they started buying from the first bubble tea shop. Then what happened to the second bubble tea shop? They said, "Hey, this cannot be, right?" So what did they do? They offered buy 10, get 2 free. Right? So what happened? People who went to the first bubble tea shop went back to the second bubble tea shop. Then now, what happened again? The first bubble tea shop said that cannot be, right? So they went to offer the deal of buy 10, get 3 free. So my point is, it goes back and forth. Eventually, it came to the point where it's buy 1, get 1 free. Okay, but the point I'm trying to share with you is this. Because the two bubble tea shops are very similar, they had no choice but to compete based on price. Eventually, they closed down, right? So that was in the early 2000s. There were many bubble tea shops. They all came about. They were very successful for a while, and then they all closed down because they couldn't differentiate. Today in Singapore, right, there's a resurgence in bubble tea shops. There are many bubble tea shops out there now. Right? The current place where I work, there are 5 very popular brands. But the difference now is this. Each of the bubble tea shops now are different. One will compete based on the variety of the pearls they have, the ingredients they have. Another one competes based on the quality of the tea, where it comes from, how it's brewed. The third one competes based on the formula or the recipe, right? I have a special this, special ingredient, and so on and so forth. So now they're all very successful, and they are no longer competing based on price. What they do is that they have a very different clientele. Those that those that place a premium or preference for good tea, they'll go to a particular shop. Those who place a preference for having very nice bubbles, right, they go to a particular shop. Okay, so now it's successful, and the point I'm trying to share with you is that they're no longer competing based on price, and I think this is a good, successful business model. Okay. So the point that I'm sharing to you with you is this. If you as a business owner, you have something different, something unique, right, that's hopefully better than a competitor, and it meets the needs of your competitor, you have marketing options. You can charge higher prices and you can have better margins. And since you're no longer competing based on a price, right, you can actually succeed. It's important that you find something that differentiates you, right? And the bubble tea example is something that I want to share with you for you to keep in mind, right? If you are different, you can survive because you will pull a different market or different clientele to buy from you. The third thing about having a USP, as I shared earlier, right? Remember the bubble tea shops I talked about that currently in Singapore now, right? If in the past they had no choice but to say buy from me because I'm cheaper. So all their ads were about discounts, right? 10% cheaper, buy one get two free, and so on and so forth. But if you look at the bubble tea shops now, they're no longer talking about price. Their marketing is no longer about price. Their marketing is about what's different about their product. So for example, like I said, one will talk about how special the tea is, where it's bought from, how it's processed, how it's brewed, right? They emphasize based on that. And this is on purpose to capture a particular market, a particular segment of the market that believes in the tea. Then the other bubble tea shop will talk about the variety of the pearls, how healthy it is, how crunchy it is, how chewy it is. Right? They focus, emphasize that. Why? They're targeting a market segment that's interested in the bubbles, right? The quality of the bubbles. So if you have a USP, it actually gives you marketing options. You no longer need to compete based on price, but you can actually compete based on what is so unique about your particular product. Okay. So to share an example, right? This is me. This is my LinkedIn page. I used to work in the government, and I was a deputy director in the Prime Minister's office doing government communications. So on the left side, you'll see some companies called alpha sites. So all these are so-called consultants. What they do is that they will occasionally reach out to people like myself and say, hey, I have a client who would like to speak to you to find out a bit about what your knowledge you have gained in the past, to share with them so that they can actually prepare their own business proposals and so on. Right? So this company reached out to me, and they spoke to me, and after going through an interview, sort of interview process with them, they said, fine, sounds good. I think my client will want to speak to you, right? Then they say, okay, the rate is $100 an hour. Then they ask me whether will I accept it or not. So in my mind, right, I've done this before, right? And I know that the market rate is about $200 to $250 an hour. Then I ask myself, is my knowledge unique? Right? Is what the insights that I'm able to offer something no other person can offer? And when I sat down and thought about it, I realized that it's true. So I went back and I told this company, no, I want $250 an hour. If not, I'm not interested. So of course the company came and said, no, cannot lah. It's too expensive. Nobody will want you, all that kind of stuff, right? But then I said, look, the knowledge you want is rare. Of course, there are other people whom I know of that works in the Prime Minister's office before, but there are very few of us, right? And I don't think many of them will be interested in doing this. So I was very, very adamant. I said, no, this is my market rate. What the knowledge I have is unique. I don't think many people can offer this. If you want, it's $250. So at the end of the day, alpha sites went, it's okay, very difficult, but they will try. Right? They went back, and 2 days later, they called me and said, hey, my client wants to speak to you. So I spoke to them for 45 minutes, and they paid me $225. So I share with you this example, right? In a sense, not to show off, but to show that actually, if you understand what you're worth, if you understand what you're offering to your customers is unique, right? You're offering something that very few other people can offer, or that you have something different, then you can actually command a price. You can be clear that your client will pay you what you think you're worth, because no one else can do it for you. So this is similar to the concept of having a strong USP. Right? If your unique selling proposition is so strong that none of your competitors can offer the similar thing, then you can of course command the right price. Right? So do bear that in mind the next time you do pricing. Right? And of course, very often when you offer a product and service, your client will come back, oh, can you give me a discount, right? So many of us will straight away, okay, I'll give them a discount. But I suggest this to you. Whether they're offering a discount, reply and tell them, oh, I don't think it's possible. This is my rate. I think it's a fair rate. And I tell you why. Because I can do this for you, which nobody else can do for you. Right? Of course, if what you say is true, then definitely your client will pay you what you want. It's something to think about. Now, as we move on, and as I've done this talk several times or many times, there are certain myths about USP that I want to share with you. And I think that it's useful as we go through this, and it will help you understand the concept of USP better. Okay, so there are 4 that I'll be sharing with you. Right? First one is superior marketing can overcome poor USP. It's not true. You can have a lot of money, you can do it, but as I shared earlier, if you do not have something that is good and unique that your client wants, superior marketing cannot help you. Secondly, we so briefly talked about it, right? Some people think that your branding is your USP. This is of course not true. I can tell it's very different. They're related, but they're different. The third thing I want to share with you is about some people think that USP is universal, right? That means what works in Singapore will work in Myanmar, what works in Myanmar will perhaps work in the US, okay, or vice versa, right? Works in the US will work in Singapore or Myanmar, or even Cambodia. It doesn't, it's not true. And the fourth point, of course, people always think a USP is permanent, right? Once I develop a strong USP, that's it, I'm set for life. Okay, this is not true. Then allow me to explain. Oops, what happened? How can I jump in this one? Oops, okay, sorry. All right, I'm not sure what happened, but let me just go back to the first myth. I'll just talk to you. So superior marketing, as I mentioned earlier to you earlier, is that many people think if I throw money at a problem, right, I throw money at a problem, I can actually overcome it. Right? The example I always share with people is this. I'm sorry, my dog. The example I always share is that in Microsoft or Nokia and so on, right? They have huge budgets. So what they do in the past was that they actually spent $200 million in the US market alone marketing their product and service. But at the end of the day, Nokia still failed. Right? So money itself, as I said, cannot overcome a poor USP. If your product doesn't meet the particular need of the client, no matter how much you tell them about your product, they will not buy. Right? The client will buy only products that will meet their needs. Right? So related to this, about branding becoming a USP, right? What I used to share is the example of Apple. Right? People always talk about Apple, a very strong brand, right? And how successful they are. But the point that I want to share is that when Apple first started, Apple first fulfilled a unique need. Think back to when Apple first started. Apple's primary purpose, right, was to provide an easy interface for anybody to use a computer. Right? At the early point when computers first came about, computers were huge. Computers had a lot of components, had a lot of wires here and there. Right? And to use a basic computer, you need to understand basic programming, right? You have backslash this, DOS, directory, and so on and so forth. But what Apple did was they created the iMac, right? Many years ago, right? You just basically plug and play. You plug it in straight away. The entire thing comes in one piece. The monitor is built with the CPU. And also, it's a very easy cable for the keyboard to the particular to the so-called the setup, right? Compare that to a more traditional computer where you had to have a monitor, the CPU, the keyboard, and printer, and so on and so forth. It became very complicated. So when Apple first started, right, their basic USP to the clients was you buy it, take it off from the box, plug it in, and you can use it. Okay, so based on that, Apple started building their branding, and they continue to use that. But Apple has continued to talk about user experience. how the ease of user, how easy it is to use, right? And this appeals to a particular need. Okay. The third one that I want to share with you is this, right? It's about universality, right? I briefly talked about it. A particular business model that's successful in the US might not work in our own countries. So, and I shared an example of a laundromat. For those of you who have, I guess, studied overseas or been overseas, in the US, laundromats like this were very, very successful. Right? So in Singapore, I had a friend who went to the US, lived there for a while, and came back and set up laundromats in Singapore like this. Right? And I told him frankly, it will not work, it will not be successful. He didn't believe me. Okay, so I explained to him this. In the US, people seldom own their house. Right? People don't really own their house for a very simple reason. In Singapore, it's very small. I mean, if you know Singapore, we're about 46 square kilometers in size. So I basically can live in the same house and work anywhere in Singapore without having to move. But the US is so huge, right? If I live, for example, in San Francisco, I work in the city of San Francisco. Yes, it's somewhere within. But if I change jobs to perhaps maybe someplace in Los Angeles or Oregon, right? I need to move house, right? So what happens in the US? People seldom buy their house because they actually have to move. And why don't people buy washing machines? Because a washing machine, firstly, although it's not costly, it's cumbersome, right? If I buy a washing machine, I install it to my house. Each time I move, I have to move it. So it's just better for me to just go to the laundromat or use some cleaning services. So I shared this with him, right? Because fundamentally the US is different from Singapore, where everybody owns their own house. We live in the same house for many, many years. All of us buy our own washing machine. So there's a fundamental difference between the business models. There's a demand, and you have a demand for washing machines or laundromats in the US that's not applicable in Singapore. Right? So he didn't listen to me, he started business and he wasn't successful. And he came back and he asked me, hey Justin, I'm suffering now. How can I change this? So then I told him, think about it. Right? Your laundromat needs to offer something unique that nobody has. Right? If your laundromat is just a washing machine that people have in their own house, nobody will use your laundromat. So I said, how can you be different? So we discussed it. And then I told him that the only way to succeed or survive in Singapore, although the demand is small, is to offer industrial grade washing. Right? Industrial grade washing. What does this mean? Firstly, you need a machine that can clean very, very dirty things, right? Extremely dirty things. Second thing, you need a washing machine that's large, right? That someone cannot use in their house. Right? So I shared with him this because very simply that at the end of the day, if I have a washing machine in my own house and something is very, very dirty, right? I do not want to dirty my own washing machine. I wouldn't mind paying the laundromat to do it. So that's the first time. That's one of the reasons I will use the laundromat. The second reason I use laundromat is perhaps maybe I want to wash a huge blanket or bed covers, whatever it is, which perhaps my washing machine in my house is too small to do, right? I will then go to the laundromat. So at the end of the day, I told him, if you want to survive, you need to so-called pivot your business and start offering industrial grade services, right, to average Singaporean. So he took my advice, he did it, and while he's not making tons of money, he's not losing money. And I think he's waiting for the time to get out of the business because, like I said, fundamentally, the USP in the US is not applicable in Singapore. Okay? So that's the one, the myth I want to share with you. The fourth myth is about this thing called permanence, right? People thought that if I have a USP now, I'm very successful, I need not change, right? But this is far from the truth, right? So the example that I always share is this. A couple of years back, I had an opportunity to meet this person from Toshiba, right? She's the brand strategist for Toshiba computers. So I had a conversation with her. I asked, hey, what is so unique about Toshiba? What is the unique selling proposition of your Toshiba computers? She told me, oh, Toshiba's computers last a lifetime. Meaning you buy a Toshiba computer, it will last you at least 10 years. I said, fantastic, right? But the point is, I mean, my own view was that computers have evolved. When computers first came out in the, I think, 90s and so on, right? The durability, the lifespan of computers were always a question mark. I buy one, I don't know whether it will last me a year. So having a computer that lasts and durable is important to me. But fast forward to today, any computer you buy, even the cheapest one from China, will last you 3 to 4 years. right? So is that USP for Toshiba computers important anymore? The durability or the lifespan? To me, I would say not, right? Because people don't, any computer you buy gives you a visible lifespan. The second thing that I shared with her was this. Uh, the evolution of computer is so quick now. Every 18 months, the Pentium chip gets faster. You get a new user interface. You get a new graphic interface cards and things like that. So even if my computer can last me 10 years, after 3 to 4 years, the computer is obsolete already, right? Because it's not fast enough to run the programs and so on and so forth. So my view to them is this. I shared that frankly, Toshiba has done well, but the USP that made them successful in the past is no longer valid, right? Because the macro factors has changed it, right? The cost of computing had become so cheap that any computer can actually last a long time. And because of the programming speed, the evolution of how fast it evolves, right? So having a USP that makes you durable is no longer important anymore. So for them to survive, they need to evolve. But of course, they, I guess in a sense, didn't quite buy my idea, and they continue on a path. And eventually, I think I would say it's history lah. Toshiba computing has been sold off already. So I just want to share with you these four myths to help to summarize that actually at the end of the day, these are some things you must consider in finding a USP for your business. Okay. More importantly, I want to come to this point. What are the elements of a good USP? Right? When I looked at it, and I always share this with people, there are actually 6 elements that you must consider. Right? I won't go into too much detail because I don't have time, but I want to just share a few key points. Firstly, your USP must be unique, right? It's easily said, right? But if you look at this part of the slide, I would say that a USB can be unique in the sense that it's either real, something inherent in your product, or something you create, right, to make it unique. So for example, if it's unique, if it's real, for example, the speed, right, Pentium at Intel, every 18 months they have a faster chip. That's a real USP, right? You want something fast, you buy from me. Something created, think about De Beers, diamonds, right? How De Beers created a demand for high quality diamonds. Right? If you know diamonds, to average man, you can't tell low quality from high quality, right? A diamond is a diamond. But how did De Beers actually create this demand for uniqueness of a high quality diamond, which you cannot see, right? So they created the 4 C's for diamonds. So if you want to create a USP for your business, think about it. What is so unique about your business that you can actually continue to market that? Or what can you create to make it unique such that people will come and buy from you? Right. The second element of strong USP is to target needs and not wants. So many businesses, especially during the COVID-19, suffered, right? When there's a recession or when there is a difficulty, people don't buy needs. People buy what? People don't buy wants, they buy needs. They buy things that they need to do. So during the COVID period, who survived, who did well? The food business, right? And so the ancillary business supporting this was the delivery business. So if you want to actually target something, right, you want to position your USP to your client, talk about something that they need, right, not something that they want, right? So for example, be a profit center and not a cost center. The third thing about when you develop a USP is talk about market size. Right? Many times when I talk about USP, many people come and tell me, okay, let's do this, right? And then they start becoming very niche, right? And they niche themselves so small that there's no significant market size. So at the end of the day, if you want to focus on the need, you want to actually want to market something, or you want to niche yourself, you make sure that that niche that you've carved out for yourself is sufficiently large enough for you to actually be profitable. Right? The fourth thing that you talk about USP is to talk about something that can be demonstrated. Don't talk about intangibles, right? I always talk about the example of service. Service is something that's very difficult to quantify. No business will say, I give you bad service, right? Every business will always say, I'm the best. I give you the best service. No, I'm the cheapest and so on. But can you demonstrate this? How do you demonstrate something different? Right? And I think in the past, Ritz-Carlton is very famous for this, right? They're known for their service. But if you think about it now, Ritz-Carlton has become, their marketing point has become irrelevant, right? Because service constantly elevates itself, right? What is good service in the past is considered average service now, right? Or normal service now. So for you to continue to push service as a USP is very, very difficult because it's impossible to continually improve. right? Similarly, for service, it's very subjective, right? If I as a customer, you do everything for me, I'll say you're good service. You can do everything for me, right? For maybe 10 times. But the one time that you do something for, I ask you for something, you don't do it for me, I'll say you're a bad service. So it becomes very intangible and very difficult. The fifth thing about USP is to make sure it's defensible, right? When I say defensible means when you go in, you say you can do this, make sure it takes some time or make sure it's difficult for your competitor to claim the same thing, right? So going back to the example of service, if you say you give great service, it's also very easy for a competitor to give great service, right? So that to me as a USP is not defensible. But if you say, for example, you have a particular bubble tea, the way you brew your tea requires a special machine that is only proprietary to you, that only you have. Then your competitor cannot claim the same. So that to me is a defensible USP, right? That only you have and people cannot claim to have the same. And the last element that I want to share with you is make sure your USP is up to date, right? Meaning that it continues to be relevant. So I come back to the example about the Toshiba computers. If you had a USP about having a laptop that's durable, yes, it's very meaningful in the 90s and early 2000s. But as technology evolves, this particular USP becomes irrelevant, right? And therefore, it's not up to date. So I've done this, and as mentioned earlier, I do workshops for different government agencies. I have done this for Myanmar, sorry, Sri Lanka, right? And just to give an example, and when I did the workshop with them, they talked about tuna, talked about shipbuilding, herbal tea, and turmeric. So as I work with them, I'll share an example. The team that was talking about marketing turmeric, right? They shared with me, I asked them, so what's so unique about your turmeric, right? They want to create USP. So they told me the quality of the soil, the ideal climate. So as I look at it, I think, yes, because geography is important, right? No other country can claim to the same quality of soil or a similar climate. So therefore, if you ask me, and you say that your product is unique because of this, I think it's possible. So I gave it to them. Then I asked them, if you're saying turmeric, right, what are you targeting? Is it something for good to have or need to have? And then they say they're going to market it that turmeric prevents cancer, right? This is definitely a need, right? If you are actually concerned about cancer and cancer is getting increasingly more prevalent, then the need to prevent cancer is actually a strong USP. Then the next I asked them, what's the market size? Oh, they told me it's globally $1 billion US market size. To me, it's not insignificant and it's sufficiently large. Then I asked them, can you demonstrate what you want to say? They said, of course, scientific research by the World Health Organization and universities have proven that turmeric prevents cancer, and that, for example, the soil and the climate in Sri Lanka is ideal for this. So fantastic. Then I asked, how do you ensure that your this branding or this particular USP is defensible? Then they say, oh, they will then talk about intellectual property rights to the formula, they will have production trade secrets, and they will build a brand around it. Well, I think it's a good idea, right? And finally, I asked them, how do you ensure that your USP stays up to date? And they said they'll continue to spend money in R&D, research and development, to improve the formula. So generally, as I talked to the Sri Lanka Trade Development Board about turmeric, this is how they try to create something unique about themselves. And this is their unique selling proposition for turmeric internationally. Right? So this, I just give an example to actually sum up how you can use this simple model or these 6 elements to find something unique by your own company. All right, I think that's about the time I have. It's about, 9:45. So are there any questions that you have? You can either type it in the chat board or you can actually raise your hands and then I will allow you to speak and ask the question.
Yep. Anyone have any questions concerning?
Yeah. I mean, what you're thinking also, if you, I have this chat group or private Facebook group where people do discuss this. So if you want to take out your handphone and scan this QR code, please join the group. Anytime you have a question, I mean, we can always discuss it in the chat, in the Facebook group. Yeah.
Thank you, Justin. I think it has been very informative on the knowledge of being unique. Anyone have any questions that you might want to pose to Justin? it's okay. If not have, if you don't have, shy to say it, you can scan the QR code, and then you can actually ask him on his Facebook group. Yeah, that would be the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I do apologize. I mean, I was told it's 45 minutes. So actually, there's a lot more in detail. The webinar normally, if I do, is about two and a half hours. And I go into more details. So anyway, this is just a flavor for you to consider. As a business owner, please think about being unique, right? And position yourself differently from your competitor. The ultimate thing that you must ask yourself is that, what must I say to my client such that they buy from me instead of my competitor? Right? Many products and services are the same now, right? If I'm a trainer, yeah, there are many trainers out there. But why should you hire me instead of somebody else, right? And it could be because of my qualifications, it could be because of the frameworks I have, or whatever it is. So you need to develop this such that your clients will buy from you and not from your competitor. So think along those lines, I think you'll be fine. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Yeah. So if you have no questions, okay. Okay. Okay, you can also find us. Today's webinar will be on our YouTube channel. So if you have anything that you want to reach out to us for what kind of webinars that you need or you think that you want, you can find us on our social media and our Reveres Academy. We have our website, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can click to join. Yep. Okay. So, okay, our upcoming webinar for the next week will be discovering and utilize the key to happiness. You can scan the barcode, or if not, then you will. Then you can join our webinar for next week. Justin, I think there is a question: should one business review its USB in response to new trend, but trend may be temporary?
Okay. So should one business review its USP response to new trends, right? Okay, so I do share this, right? When we talk about trends, I think there are two types of trends. One trend is a mega trend that will change businesses or change the industry, or there are trends that are temporal, right? But what people currently like, the color, the flavor, and things like that. So I always advocate that as a business owner, we always need to be forward-looking. People always laugh at me when I tell them, hey, you can actually predict the future. And I'm serious about this. But as a business owner, right, if we look at mega trends, for example, like technology, about demographics, and things like this, right, you will be able to predict with 70 to 80% accuracy what your industry will be like 5 and 10 years down the road, right? And if you identify this trend, then it's important for you to pre-position yourself to capture the trend, right? So when I talk about USP, about pivoting, you should look at mega trends. Some intermediate trends, like for example, the fads, right? I think you should forget it. So let me give you an example. If you look at the way society is going now, I'll talk about Singapore. In 2030, right, in about 10 years from now, 50% of our population will be above 60 years old. So that's one thing. Second thing, you look at technology now, right? Rapidly increasing, you have robotics, you have artificial intelligence. So if you combine these two trends, a good business to be in, right, will be about technology helping the elderly, right? If you also look at our demographics, while 50% will be above 60, the number of younger Singaporeans is shrinking. So the number of people able to take care of the elderly is also shrinking, right? So as a business, if you're in this area, you can then position yourself, understand, hey, what should I be doing to so-called do this? So if you are a business offering training, for example, do you then now identify there's a need to so-called teach people how to take care of the elderly? Then maybe you can have different kind of courses suited for this, right? If your business is about teaching students, right, you'll realize that, hey, actually the number of students are getting smaller. So maybe I shouldn't be teaching primary school students, but I should be focusing on perhaps maybe adult learning, right? So my quick answer to your question is that I will ignore trends because trends normally tend to be temporal, but you should still look at mega trends that will affect your industry. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. There's another question that will the business mission, vision, and value need to change if it change its USP, or only the business strategy need to change?
Okay, well, this is a very tough question. Huh? To be honest, visions and missions, if done correctly, are very macro and big, right? The service you offer or how you do it can be different, or the product and service you offer can be different, right? So if, for example, I started my business to help people so-called live a more meaningful life, right? That's my vision, right? For example, my values will be things like, for example, honesty, transparency, and so on and so forth, right? So as I evolve and identify a new USP, as long as it continues to fulfill my mission and vision, right, it does not need to change, right? Because this is normally what you actually started to do from the beginning, right? So my answer is actually, if the vision and mission is still valid, the changes in the USP should be, in a sense, incremental or in line with that, and therefore your vision and mission need not change.
So only business strategies need to change.
Strategy-wise, I would say is it also comes back to the macro cycle, right? A strategy is not a USP, right? A strategy is a means to accomplish your outcome. But when I talk about USP, it's how you position yourself to actually achieve the outcome. So it is related, but not directly related.
Okay. Anyone have any questions that you would like to pose to Justin? He's complaining now.
Yeah, my
Okay.
dog very irritating.
Yeah. If not, then thank you, Justin, for the webinar, and hope that you all had a good day and a good weekend to you.
Right,
Okay.
thanks everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
yeah. Okay. I'll see you. Bye. Thank you, everyone.